Welcome back to Music Kingdom. In this video we are listening to, giving a music theory breakdown for, and reviewing one of my most favorite tracks and one of the most underrated tracks from the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, Tell Him. Hang tight. Hey music lovers, my name is Francis. If you'd like to support the work I put into these videos, click the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support the channel even further, you'll find Music Kingdom's Patreon and other affiliate links in the description below. Alright, now before we give the song a listen, let's briefly talk context for the song Tell Him and the album The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. And it is a bit conflicting because what more can be said about this album that hasn't already been said? Most people who have a genuine interest in music are going to be familiar with this album, as it is one of the greatest albums not only of the 90s but of all time in most people's and critics' opinions. But if there is one person out there who just might not know all too much about Lauryn Hill or the album The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, I will give a very brief history lesson. The album The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill came out in 1998, and it would be Lauryn Hill's first solo studio album and her last. In its first week alone, it sold over 400,000 copies, which broke a first week sales record for a female artist. In addition to that, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill earned 10 Grammy nominations and ended up winning 5, which is the first time something like that was ever achieved by a woman in the music industry. Which, in my opinion, and I would assume most others' opinions, is just so badass, and is on the level of Michael Jackson if you picture him just holding all the Grammys for the Thriller album. So Lauryn Hill achieved that, which by itself is remarkably impressive, but to do it on your first studio album makes it all the more impressive. It would instantly propel Lauryn Hill to levels of international superstardom, and the album played a significant role in kind of shaping the music industry at the time, bringing neo-soul and the genre of hip-hop even more to the forefront of what popular music was, at least by the late 90s and the early 2000s. And no, it's not all because of this album, but absolutely its success really helped change and create trends within the music industry and what was to come in the years dead ahead. Now, during the making of the album, Lauryn Hill was pregnant, and in her opinion, that really enhanced her creativity, and I have a quote of what she had to say about that. "When some women are pregnant, their hair and their nails grow, but for me it was my mind and ability to create. I had the desire to write in a capacity that I hadn't done in a while. I don't know if it's a hormonal or emotional thing. I was very in touch with my feelings at the time." Which I find absolutely beautiful, and also paints a picture of how it was this perfect storm of artistry and creativity that basically helped create one of the most, as mentioned, celebrated and respected albums of all time. Now, regarding the song Tell Him specifically, to my knowledge, at the time of its release in '98, it was a hidden track. It was a bonus track. It was not, to my knowledge, on the original LP. However, most of us now, with Apple Music, with Spotify, with YouTube, it's just gonna be on the album. But apparently at the time, it was a bit harder to get a hold of. You guys will have to let me know in the comments, because I got into Lauryn Hill, musically speaking, probably 10 to 15 years ago when I was a young teenager, and even by then, while we didn't have streaming music apps, we still had like iTunes and stuff like that. So for me, Tell Him was always available. But as far as the earlier days of the album being sold physically, I can't really lend my own expertise. I did grow up on Lauryn Hill because of the movie's Sister Act. So I saw her in Sister Act 2, which I believe was a 1992 release, and that's always how I knew her. It wasn't until later in my life that I really dove deep into her collection of music, and the Fugees. So with that context in mind, I wanted to choose Tell Him for this video. Yes, because it's one of my personal favorites on the album regardless, but also because I would argue to people who are more familiar with the singles from that album, X Factor, Everything Is Everything, Do Want That Thing, so on and so forth, that unless you're really a diehard Lauryn Hill fan or you're a diehard fan of this album in its entirety, a lot of people just aren't really gonna know about the song, or maybe they do and they forgot. But in my opinion, it is a beautiful example of just how delicate and gentle Lauryn Hill's creativity and artistry could be, and I would recommend anybody to listen to her MTV Unplugged live album from 2002. It's not considered a solo studio album, but it is an album of just her and her acoustic guitar singing original songs that are absolutely gorgeous. So if you're into Lauryn Hill, check that out if you haven't. And now, without further ado, it's time to give the song a listen, and be sure to stick around afterwards for a music theory breakdown from our expert, and then we're gonna break the song into different categories, arriving at a final song score.
Sweet, sweet.
It's already so tender.
Tell him kind. Make me unselfish without being blind. Though I may suffer,
Stunning lyrics.
be it not, and endure what comes. 'Cause he's all that I gotta tell him.
And the backing harmonies.
Tell him I need him. Tell him I love him. And it'll be alright. And tell him I need him.
Amazing.
Tell him I love him. It'll be alright.
It almost feels like one giant ad-lib.
Then I am nothing at all. I can give away.
Blows me away.
Everything I possess, but am without love, then I have no happiness. I know I'm imperfect, and not without sin. But now that I'm older,
You can really feel her vulnerability.
tell these things in and tell him I need him. Tell him I need him. Tell him I love him. It'll be alright.
The backing vocals have a feel of like the 60s, like the Supremes.
I'll never be jealous, and I won't be too proud. Everything is gonna be alright. Ooh.
Disgusting. It's almost upsetting how good this song is.
Oh, yeah.
And her vocal runs are incredible.
See what we now know is nothing compared to the love that was shown when our lives were spared. And tell him I need him. Tell him I love
And the production, albeit simplistic, is perfect for this song.
him. Oh, tell him I need him. Tell him I love him.
I love her little ad-libs in the background too.
Oh,
Just talking over it. Oh, the sauce. There's so much sauce. You really feel that 60s Motown inspiration. It's gorgeous with the modern production. Wow. Wow. Initial thoughts, aside from holy shit, that was amazing, would probably be the lyrics, and not just the lyrics, but how she delivers the lyrics. As with art of any kind and any medium that art is created and expressed, it is open to interpretation, right? That is kind of the point of it, is how it lands with us and the sense we make of it. And so I've personally never been sure if this song was about God, or if the song was about romance, or maybe a bit of both, because as mentioned with art, it can be complex in that way. But I even took to the old internet to see all these years later that people still don't quite have it figured out. Some people are really in the camp or the side that it is a religious song. Other people are strictly for the camp that it's a romantic song. And some people, like myself, can kind of see how it might be a double entendre, if you will, open for interpretation by the listener. Having said that, let's say we assume that there is some religious meaning to it, because yes, if you actually look at the lyrics, to my knowledge, there is quite a lot of biblical references, specifically Corinthians, if I'm not mistaken. So even if it's using religious language to talk about romance, there's still the element of faith in God and religion and all that. So what my initial thoughts are, to get back to my point, is whether you are a religious person, whether you are a spiritual but not religious person, or you're an atheist, I think you can still absolutely appreciate and admire the beauty and conviction of Lauryn Hill's faith. Regardless of your unbeliefs or lack thereof, I still am just absolutely melted and shocked and enamored with the strength and devotion of her faith. And then to be able to produce a certain vibe, a certain atmosphere, a certain aesthetic, very well fitting of that message, of the lyrics. And then, of course, as mentioned, just the ability to deliver it with such tenderness in her voice and an impressive ability to do these vocal runs where in one breath she's doing all these different notes with her voice. That is hard to do, just by the way. And then, of course, as mentioned, just the absolute sauce, the absolute hints of aesthetics from vintage Motown music and soul music that Lauryn Hill, not just in this song, but in the entire album, so effectively injects into her work. Now later in this video, I will get more specific regarding the vocals, the lyrics, the composition, the production, etc., breaking it apart into categories and grading them each, arriving at a final score. But before we can do that, let's first go to the Expert's Corner for a music theory breakdown and to hear what he has to say.
Welcome to the Expert's Corner. This is Tell Him by Lauryn Hill. I love this song. It's in the time signature of 4/4 and it's in the key of D flat major. Now musically it is a pretty simple song, it's only 4 chords and that chord progression repeats throughout the entire song. However, it is masterfully put together. I can tell whoever composed it, whether it's Lauryn or someone else, really does know their stuff because they add little flavors to the chords that really give it a sense of almost like a romantic longing. At least that's what I feel when I hear these chords. So it starts on D flat major, but once the bass comes in, the bass goes to an A flat, so it's D flat over A flat. Then it goes to D flat major 7 over A flat. Then it goes to E flat minor. Then it goes to A flat dominant 7. Here it is in action. So when I found out we were doing this song for our next video, it had been a long time since I'd heard this song. So when I listened to it again, it was almost like the first time all over again. I was just taken aback by how well put together it is, how moving it is, how it kind of lulls you in. I think just about every aspect of this song is great. Lauryn's vocals are soulful, the lyrics are simple but beautiful. The music, as I just described, simple but very well done. Overall, as a package, it's masterful. So given all of those factors, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Back to you, Francis.
A very special thank you to our expert for providing a music theory breakdown and giving the song a very strong 8 out of 10. And now it's time to break the song apart into various categories, reviewing them specifically and arriving at a final song score. Starting out with composition specifically, I'm inclined to give it a 7.5 out of 10. The reason being, if we're talking about the compositional structure of the song, musically speaking, it is pretty simple. It is fairly basic, which I'm inclined usually to give a middle of the road 5 out of 10, which is fair. However, I am tacking on an extra 2.5 points, which I don't usually feel so inclined to do, but in my opinion, it is because of Lauryn Hill's genius with her melodies, right? Because if you're just looking at an instrumental or just the musical composition, structurally speaking, it is basic. But she takes that, and with her creativity and her artistry, decides to give it the most beautiful melodies, whether we're talking about the verses, whether we're talking about the chorus or the harmonies, and that alone for me is just so impressive and really improves the complexity of the composition just in its own melodic way as opposed to its structural way. So 7.5 for me, specific to composition, is fair if you're acknowledging how simple it is structurally composed and the genius that Lauryn Hill's melodic gift and creativity lends to the song. Moving right along to production specifically, I am giving that a very strong 8 out of 10. And usually for scores of 8s, 9s, and 10s in the category of production, it better be so intricate, right? It better be so advanced or so complex of a production. That's not always the case though. A production can be very simple and still get a high score because of how intuitive it is, because of how tasteful it is, and how intentional it is regarding the context and the overall aesthetic of a song. So for example, the beat, which falls under the umbrella of production, it isn't necessarily a beat that melts your face or that is the most intricate or complex, right? Nor does the song production-wise have a lot of instruments thrown at it or all these sounds and colors or layers that really beef it up, right? It keeps it pretty raw and it keeps it pretty simple. So in that regard, I might give a production a 5, a 6, or a 7, but the reason I'm giving this one an 8 is because it is also production to really perfect and master the usage of ad-libs and harmonies, which in my opinion is really what makes the song truly great. It is Lauryn Hill's very evident Motown inspiration on how to use her harmonies with her own voice and when to throw in the ad-libs on top of the harmonies, on top of what she's doing to really give the song its full flavor and full effect. So an 8 out of 10 for production, in my opinion, is fair because it's not just good, it's great. Up next, we have lyrics, which I'm giving a very rare 9 out of 10. In my opinion, this is as close to perfection as you can get with lyrics, and in my opinion, let me know if you agree or disagree, this is perhaps one of the best written songs of Lauryn Hill's entire career. It has everything you want. It makes perfect sense, right? A lot of people try to rhyme for the sake of rhyming to make it fit with the song, and they fail to tell a story effectively. Lauryn Hill not only effectively tells a story while rhyming beautifully with the flow of the song, she's also doing it in such a poetic and divine and inspired way, where having read that quote from earlier makes absolute sense that she was in some sort of peak level of creativity where these songs would just come to her and it would just pour out of her. Would the song still be beautiful with its production and composition alone, even if the lyrics were about cows? Yes, because she has the gift to really deliver a song about cows that could make you cry, right? But the fact that the lyrics on top of that are also truly stellar, in my opinion, anything lower than a 9 would be sacrilege. Up next, we have vocals, which I am also giving a very rare 9 out of 10. Lauryn Hill, first of all, can rap with the best of them. That alone can blow many of us away. It's the fact that she can also sing with such a gorgeous voice, and in my opinion, a voice that really, I've said it so many times now, really reminds you of an older golden era of black music. And she has that vintage retro sound whenever she sings. And to me, it absolutely floors me every time. But in this song specifically, which is what we're reviewing, she really showcases her ability to play with her voice. And the only reason it's probably not a 9.5 or a 10, which I've never given out, is because for it to be that perfect, I would need more belting from her. I would need one song that has the versatility of falsetto, vocal runs, and belting in a way that melts your face off. So I am leaving off 1 point for that because I'm trying to be as objective here as possible and not just give out 10s, right? But even still, a 9 out of 10 accurately reflects the near perfection of her voice. You would think that she was this 65-year-old singer who had decades to really train her vocal cords, but at this time in her life, Lauryn Hill was fairly young, and she was doing this with her voice, which in my opinion, especially with today's music, you really don't hear a lot of artists who can do that and make it so truly breathtaking. In my opinion, 9 out of 10, no hesitation. Arriving at our final category of originality and or inspiration, I'm giving this song yet another very rare, or I guess becoming less rare because of Lauryn Hill, 9 out of 10. And really, this song is a perfect example of what originality and inspiration sounds like. In an era especially where so much music is generic or uninspired or redundant or repetitive, blurs with the rest of music, right? Not all, I am generalizing, but even still, it just wows me. It's so fresh and creative and unlike so many other songs that exist. That's what makes a song inspired and original, is that it can stand alone and not be like anything else. It's Lauryn Hill tapping into something so raw, so vulnerable, so tender, so strong, so expressive, and really showcasing the depth that she's capable of for people who really only knew her prior with the Fugees. Bottom line, there just aren't many other songs, in my opinion, that are as original or inspired as this one, which is why it is well deserving of a 9 out of 10. And now if we add it all up, throw in the expert score and average it out, Tell Him by Lauryn Hill from the 1998 solo studio album The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill gets a very strong 8.4 out of 10. In my opinion, that feels a little bit low just for how much I subjectively enjoy this song, but the point of this channel is to try to be as subjectively objective or objectively subjective as possible when really getting specific, splitting the hairs, and trying to give them a score, which is what we do on this channel because we're music nerds. But yes, emotionally, I want to give it a 9 or a 10, but if we're just looking at it objectively musically, an 8.4 is very strong and what I would consider great. Anything below an 8, I would say very good, good, mediocre, bad, horrible. You know, 9s and 10s would be absolute perfection. And in my opinion, even though I adore Lauryn Hill and this song, I wouldn't say Tell Him is one of the greatest songs ever made in the history of mankind, but it is certainly close enough. It is certainly up there, nearing a 9 out of 10, being basically an 8.5. And of course, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below because I might be either off my rocker, right on the money, or somewhere in between. And in addition, let me know which songs by your favorite artists you would like for this channel to review next. As mentioned, if you'd like to support myself and the work I put into these videos, click the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support the channel even further, you'll find Music Kingdom's Patreon and other affiliate links in the description below. This has been another edition of Music Kingdom. Thank you so much for listening with me, and I'll look forward to jamming with you in the next one.